Okay, so good evening everyone. I am Shivani Dhok and I welcome you all to the week 10 tutorial of the course of Principles of Signals and Systems. And this week we looked at the concepts related to discrete time Fourier transform, discrete Fourier transform, and we solved few examples for discrete Fourier transform, and we also looked at some things related to DTFT as well. So, like every week, I'll first discuss the contents that were covered in this week, and after that, I'll go on discussing few questions related to this week's content. So this week, okay, so last week we looked at something known as discrete time Fourier series. So that was for periodic discrete time signals. In this particular week, we looked at the counterpart of continuous time Fourier transform for discrete time signals. So that we call discrete time Fourier transform or DTFT. So when you have a discrete time signal x of n, this is not a periodic signal, this is a discrete time signal, and it is associated with its own discrete time Fourier transform x of omega, which is given by summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x of n into e power j omega n. Okay, so this is what we have seen, this definition of discrete time Fourier transform, and we can recover back our x of n discrete Fourier transform integral over any range of 2 pi x of omega into e power j omega. Yeah, there's the minus sign here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I missed a minus sign here. So capital X of omega is summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x of n into e power minus j omega n, and you can recover back your x of n from using this particular synthesis equation. Now, one key thing to note here is this omega is a continuous variable. So in frequency domain, we still have continuity of the independent random independent variables. Sorry. Okay, so now then we said that now we have infinite summation. So now there comes up the picture of convergence. So we said that your discrete time Fourier transform is convergent, or it converges only when your signal x of n is absolutely summable. Furthermore, we said that your x of omega, or rather capital X of omega, is equivalent to your x of z, which is a z transform of the signal. I think there is a lot of delay. What I'll do is I will change the Wi-Fi settings. Just a moment. Yeah, I'll change the Wi-Fi settings. Yeah, whatever I have written is not there on the screen yet. Okay. Okay. Hello. Am I audible, and can you see the content that I have written? Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, so your capital X of omega is your Z transform of the signal, but now evaluated at Z equal to e power j omega. That is, basically, you're just looking at the unit circle part. So this means that for your X of omega to exist, or your DTFT to converge, your X of n, or rather your region of convergence of your Z transform should include unit circle. And keep in mind that that was exactly the condition for the existence of your Z. Yeah. stability. So this is equivalent to saying that unit circle is included in the region of convergence of Z transform. Okay. Then we moved on to look at the different properties of DTFT. So the first property that we looked at was the periodicity property. So we said that your DTFT is periodic, or in other words, your capital X of omega is periodic with period 2 pi. The another property that we looked at is the linearity property. This is the property that is followed by all the transforms. Or in other words, the transforms that we are basically looking in this particular course are all linear transformations. So linearity property says that if I have a signal x1 of n, and let's say its discrete time Fourier transform is capital X1 of omega, and let's say you have another discrete time signal x2 of n, and its discrete time Fourier transform is x2 of omega, then if I consider the linear combination of x1 and x2, that is, if I have a1 x1 of n plus a2 x2 of n, then its discrete time Fourier transform, or DTFT, is a1 x1 of omega plus a2 x2 of omega. So this is the discrete time linearity property. The second property we looked at is time shift property. So if I have x of n minus n naught, then this has the Fourier transform as e power minus j omega naught, omega n naught into x of omega. Another property that we looked at is the frequency shift property. So e power j omega naught n x of n, this particular signal will have a discrete time Fourier transform as x of capital omega minus omega naught. Then we looked at another property, that is conjugation property. Conjugation property, it says that x conjugate of n can have DTFT as x conjugate of minus omega. And then we looked at another property, that is time reversal property. So x of minus n will have a DTFT as x of minus omega. Then we looked at another property, that is your time scaling property. For understanding that property, we defined a signal xm of n, which is basically x of n by m if n by m is integer, or n by m belongs to the set of integers. It is 0 otherwise. Okay, so this we saw, and then we said that when we have xm of n, the Fourier transform of, or DTFT of this particular signal is x, capital X m of omega. Then we have seen duality property. So your duality property gives you a relationship between your DTFT and CTFS. DTFT, discrete time Fourier transform, and continuous time Fourier series. So it says, so it says that give me a moment. Okay. Then duality property says that if x of n has DTFT as x of omega, then, so this is DTFT, then duality property says that if I take a continuous time signal x of t, remember that capital X of t is a periodic signal with period 2 pi. This will have a continuous time Fourier series as x of minus m. So this will be its Cm. the Fourier series coefficients. Yeah, Fourier series coefficients. Then we looked at differentiation in frequency property. So n into x of n, this was equal to minus dd omega of x of omega. Give me a moment, 1 second. Yeah, so I forgot there is a j here. Yeah. Then you have time difference property. So x of n minus x of n minus 1. This thing has a Fourier transform of capital X of omega into 1 minus e power minus j omega. Then we looked at accumulation property. So accumulation property says that if I accumulate all the past instances of input or x's, that will have a Fourier transform of capital X of omega upon 1 minus e power minus j omega plus pi x of 0 delta omega. So this particular second term takes care of your DC component. Then we looked at another important property which is there in every transform, and that which comes in handy to understand the implications of your systems, that is convolution in time property. So if I have x1 of n convolved with x2 of n, then this thing will have Fourier transform as simply multiplication. Then we have multiplication in time property. So these are similar properties to your CTFT. So this says that if I have x1 of n into x2 of n, this will give me 1 over 2 pi x1 of omega periodic convolution with capital X2 of omega. And the last thing that we looked at was Parseval's relation. So Parseval's relation says that the energy is conserved in both the domains. So summation x of n, magnitude of x of n whole square is energy in time domain, that is equal to 1 over 2 pi integral over a period magnitude of x of omega whole square d omega. Then we also looked at differential equations and LTI systems and all those things. I'm not going into detail of that. And then we moved on to understand another kind of transform, that is discrete Fourier transform. So what happens is this discrete time Fourier transform is a good tool to handle or to understand the frequency domain representation of your discrete time systems. But again, you want to use computational tools like your MATLAB or any just processing units which you have in your systems. Again, all of those work on discrete time systems. So again, if the Fourier transform or frequency domain representation of a particular discrete time signal is continuous, you can't do that with the help of your systems. So in order to do that, what we do is we sample the frequency domain, or we do sampling in the frequency domain as well, and that gives you something known as your discrete Fourier. So it has a relation with your DFT. 1 second. Okay, leave it. Yeah. So it has a relation with your DTFT. So it says that your x of k, which is your discrete Fourier transform, this is equal to your DTFT when you set omega as 2 pi k by n. So what are you doing essentially? Your omega, or a unique range of your omega, is from minus pi to pi or over some 2 pi range. That 2 pi range you discretize into n bills. So this k can take value from 0, 1, 2 and so on till n minus 1, unique range. Okay, yeah, so it is periodic again because your original original DTFT was periodic. So this is what we have. So when you have x of n, let's say of n length sequence, then its n point DFT is given by capital X of k, which is equal to summation n running from 0 to n minus 1 xn into e power minus j 2 pi kn by n. And you can recover back your x of n using 1 over n summation k running from 0 to n minus 1 capital X of k into e power j 2 pi kn by n. Now this particular term, which is, let's say, wn, is equal to e power j 2 pi by n. This is referred as the twiddle factor and it is your capital nth root of unity. Okay. So these are your discrete Fourier transforms, and it has a relationship with your discrete Fourier series, discrete time Fourier series, and it says, or basically your capital X of k is nothing but n times your ck's. And then we went on to look at different properties of your DFT. So again, the first property that we looked at was your linearity property. So your linearity property says that a1 x1 of n plus a2 x2 of n will have an endpoint DFT as a1 x1 of k plus a2 x2 of k, where x1 of k and x2 of k are both endpoint DFTs of x1 of n and x2 of n. Then when you shift or you cyclically shift your signal, and cyclic shift is done with the help of your modulo operation. So when you cyclically shift your signal, that is x of n minus n naught modulo n, that will give you Fourier transform as e power minus j 2 pi k n naught by capital N x of k. Then we looked at conjugation property. Conjugation property says that when you have x conjugate of n, this will have Fourier transform as x conjugate of minus k modulo n. Note that these discrete Fourier transform, you are sampling in frequency domain. And whenever you sample in one domain, you get an inherent periodicity in the other domain. So initially your x of n was an n-length sequence. But when you plug in or when you try to understand this x of n with the help of this particular equation, you will realize that this particular equation is now behaving like a periodic signal. So some inherent periodicity is coming up, but that we don't want to understand. So when you have shifting, so everything comes up with a modulo operation. So we have cyclic shifts here. We have circular convolutions. So, okay. Then we saw frequency shift. So e power j 2 pi k naught n by n into x of n. This thing has a Fourier transform as x of k minus k naught modulo n. Okay. Then what you have? The other property that we looked at was duality property. Let me add a page. Duality property. So duality property says that if x of n has a DFT as capital X of k, then capital X of n will have a DFT as n times x of minus k. Again, you will have modulo n. Then you have circular convolution. So circular convolution is like a periodic convolution that you have seen already. So x1 of n, when you circularly convolve with x2 of n, that will give me x1 of k into x2 of k. And finally we have multiplication in time property. So when x1 of n is multiplied with x1 of n is multiplied with x2 of n, that will lead to circular convolution in frequency domain. So x1 of k convolved with x2 of k. So this is like a periodic convolution, but now in discrete time domain or discrete domain. So here we have stopped in this particular week in terms of content. So if you have any questions till now, let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on to the questions that I have planned to cover. Okay. If not, then let's move on to the first question for today. So the first question here says that find the DTFT of this particular signal. So DTFT of this particular impulse response, that is h of n, it is equal to 1 when your n is between minus n1 and n1. Let's say your n1 is odd and then it is 0 otherwise. Okay, so some n1, it's okay, maybe even or odd, we don't care, but yeah, so this is how your impulse response looks like. Okay, so now what we want to do is we first want to figure out what is the discrete time Fourier transform of this particular system, and then we want to figure out whether this particular system is a low pass filter or a high pass filter. Okay, so let's go step by step. So let's first look at or try to understand how the discrete time Fourier transform of this particular system look like. So let's start with the definition. So your h of omega. So I'll take Fourier transform, discrete time Fourier transform. So we'll have capital H of omega, which will be equal to summation n running from minus infinity to infinity h of n into e power minus j omega n. Now, what is your h of n? Your h of n is 1 only in the range of minus n1 to n1. So this becomes summation n running from minus infinity to, minus n1 to n1. In that range, your h of n is 1 into e power minus j omega n. Now I'll split this particular summation into three parts. The first part will be from summation n running from minus n1 to minus 1 e power minus j omega n, plus I will do it for e power minus j omega n equal to 0, plus summation n running from 1 to capital N1 e power minus j omega n. Okay. Now let us just focus on this particular term. Okay, so let us just focus on this term. So n running from minus n1 to minus 1 e power minus j omega n. Now what I'll do is, now I'll replace n with minus n. So that will give me what? Now my summation, I can write it as summation m running from 1 to capital N1 e power j omega m, which is equivalent to, this is a running variable. This m is a running variable. So I can simply replace m with n. It doesn't matter. So this will give me summation n running from 1 to capital N1 e power j omega n. So here what I did, so here we did replacing m by n. Okay. So then let us substitute this summation back to capital H of omega. Therefore, capital H of omega is equal to summation n running from 1 to capital N1 e power j omega n plus e power minus j omega 0 is 1 plus summation n running from 1 to capital N e power minus j omega n. I will combine these two summations, so that will give me 1 plus summation n running from 1 to capital N1 e power j omega n plus e power minus j omega n. Now I will multiply and divide these terms by 2. So, okay, so that will give me 1 plus 2 times summation n running from 1 to capital N. The e power j omega n plus e power minus j omega n by 2 is nothing but cos of omega. So this is your Fourier transform, or basically this is the Fourier transform of your impulse response that is given to us. Okay. So we have h of omega is equal to 1 plus 2 times cos summation n running from 1 to infinity, 1 to n1 cos of omega n. Okay. So this is what we have right now. Now we want to understand whether this is a high pass filter or a low pass filter. And to understand that, what we can do is we can evaluate this particular filter in at two places, at omega equal to 0 and at omega equal to pi. So let us first try to evaluate it at omega equal to 0. So at omega equal to 0, your h of omega becomes 1 plus 2 times summation n running from 1 to capital N1 cos of 0, which is 1 plus 2 times. So you have one total n terms, so you will get 2n plus 1. 2n1 plus 1. So this is when you have omega equal to 0. So now what we are able to see is, of course, it is not getting cancelled. This particular thing is not getting cancelled. So we have a significant amount of magnitude that we have here. Okay, so now let us understand when we have omega equal to plus minus pi. Let's just look at pi, it will be simply a mirror image. Okay, so we have this now. So what happens? Your h of omega is 1 plus 2 times summation n running from 1 to capital N1 cos of n pi. And your cos of n pi, we know how can we write it? We can write it as 1 plus 2 times minus summation n running from 1 to capital N1 minus 1 to the power n. So if n is even, it is plus. If n is odd, it is minus. So I can write this as 1 plus 2 times minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 and so on till minus 1 to the power n1, like this. Now we can have two cases. So case 1, when n1 is even. When n1 is even, what happens? In that case, you will have 1 minus 1 and plus 1. So you can pair 1 minus 1 and 1 plus 1. So that will get cancelled. So everything gets cancelled and your h of omega remains as capital H of omega is basically equal to 1. And case 2, when n1 is odd, what will happen? You will be able to pair till n minus 1 entries. So you will get n minus 1 by 2 pairs of minus 1 and plus 1, but there will be 1 minus 1 that will be hanging around. So basically the minus 1 corresponding to this n1, that will be still hanging around. So what you will get is h of omega this one remains as it is plus 2 times minus 1, and that will give me a minus 1. So essentially, even if so at both the cases, your magnitude of h of pi, so this is at omega equal to pi, so let me just write it. So magnitude of h of pi is equal to 1. So what do you have? You have h of omega, or magnitude of h of omega, as 2n1 plus 1 for omega equal to 0, and it is equal to 1 for omega equal to plus minus pi. So it looks something like this. When you have this n1 is, let's say, large, or even if it is not large, it is more than 1. So it is something like this. This is at minus pi. This is at pi. This is 2n1 plus 1. So for large n, this 2n1 plus 1 will be very large value compared to 1. And this will be 1. This is magnitude of h of omega. And then it will just start repeating. I'm not repeating these things. So it is basically allowing your lower frequencies with a higher value compared to the higher frequencies. So this is behaving like a low pass filter. It is attenuating to some extent your higher value frequencies. Any questions? Okay, if not, then let me move on to the next question. So, if you remember, when we looked at continuous time Fourier transform, we had solved a question that helped us to understand the CTFT of a continuous time periodic signal. We'll repeat the same exercise for a discrete time periodic signal. So what is given to us is we have xp of n. This is a discrete time periodic signal, so let it be periodic with period n naught. And then in that case, so n naught, let's say is its fundamental period, then its fundamental frequency is omega naught is 2 pi by n naught. Okay, so this xp of n will have for discrete Fourier series coefficients, let's say as ck's. So you can write this xp of n as summation. So if you remember, these discrete Fourier series coefficients were periodic with period n naught. So over any period n naught, x of n, ck's into e power minus j 2 pi, jk omega naught n. So now we want to find the Fourier transform or CTFT of this. So xp of omega is basically Fourier transform of this summation. That is k in a range of n naught ck into e power minus jk omega naught n. This is equal to summation k in an interval of n naught ck into Fourier transform of e power minus jk omega naught n. And this comes from which property? This is basically linearity. Now we had seen that e power minus jk omega naught n, essentially this particular thing is equal to your Fourier transform or in an impulse which is located at k times omega naught. This we had already seen. Yeah. not just that, you have a 2 pi here. Yeah. So this is equal to, this we have seen, I'm not going to do it again. So this will be equal to k in an interval of n naught 2 pi ck into delta omega minus k times omega naught. This is x of omega. Now this x of omega basically has a unique range from minus pi to pi, but after that it uh, starts to get, or it starts to show periodicity. So taking into account, or rather taking into account that periodicity can be done by exploiting the periodicity of your ck's. So if I replace, instead of an interval, if I write it as minus infinity to infinity 2 pi ck delta omega minus k times omega naught, you'll start seeing repetitions. So we know that your ck is equal to ck plus n naught. So it just repeats at every integer multiple of n naught, or in frequency domain, it starts showing repetition. So it will start repeating at every integer multiple of your omega naught in frequency domain. Yeah, okay. That will correspond to this particular thing here. Okay. So this is the Fourier transform for a periodic signal. Any questions till this point? Okay, if no questions, then let's move on to the first question. Okay, so the first question here says that find the Fourier transform of xn equal to cos of pi by 5n and sine of pi by 5n. Okay. So what do we have? We have x of n. Let's do one by one. Let's start with cos. Cos of pi by 5n. So this will be equal to, I can write this as e power j pi by 5n plus e power minus j pi by 5n by 2. So if I take Fourier transform of this, then I'll have capital X of omega as 1 by 2 Fourier transform of e power j pi by 5n plus half of the Fourier transform of e power minus j pi by 5n. Okay, so this is what we have. So again, the Fourier transform of this particular term is delta, or rather 2 pi delta omega minus pi by 5 plus half of 2 pi delta omega plus pi by 5. Yeah. So this is what we have. So this gets cancelled, and what we are left with is pi times delta omega minus pi by 5 plus pi times delta omega plus pi by 5. Okay. So this is for your cosine. And another thing that you need to know is right now you are able to see only two impulses because this is for a fixed range of minus pi to pi. But after that it will repeat. So it also see replicas at pi plus pi by 5, pi minus pi by 5, 2 pi plus pi by 5, and 2 pi minus pi by 5, and so on. So how will it look? So it will basically look something like this. You have your 0, then you have pi, you have 2 pi, minus pi, minus 2 pi, and so on. So you have here pi, pi, this is impulse, yeah. Then you will also see at pi minus, this is pi by 5, minus pi by 5. You will see at pi minus pi by 5, one peak. Then you will see at pi plus pi by 5 replicas. Otherwise it will be 0. Then you will see at here. And again you will see at minus pi plus pi by 5, minus pi minus pi by 5, minus 2 pi plus pi by 5, and minus 2 pi minus pi by 5. So you will see replicas. So these, this, this, and this, and so on. It will repeat at every. So this, all of these are basically replicas due to periodicity in frequency domain. So again, we sampled in time domain that brought an inherent periodicity in the frequency domain. Such kind of periodicity was not there in your continuous time Fourier transform because there was no sampling involved. Okay, now we have another signal, that is x of n equal to sine of pi by 5 n. So x of n is sine of, this is second one, pi by 5 n. This I can write as e power j pi by 5 n minus e power minus j pi by 5 n by 2j. So Fourier transform of this capital X of omega will be e power, or rather delta, sorry, 2 pi delta omega plus pi by 5 minus 2 pi delta omega minus pi by 5. 1 minute. I think I made some mistake here. Yeah, there is no minus sign here. Yeah. Yeah. And then here you will get a minus sign. Yeah. Okay, so this is what we have, whole divided by 2j. So this becomes pi by j into delta omega minus pi by 5 minus pi by j into delta omega plus pi by 5. Yeah, so this is the Fourier transform, and again this is only for in the unit range. It will repeat. It will repeat in at every integer multiple. So here I made a mistake in the previous question. So while writing the Fourier series coefficients, there shouldn't be any minus sign here. I messed up there. So you won't have a minus sign, and e power j k omega naught n will have a Fourier transform as an impulse located at k pi k omega naught. So this will be the Fourier transform of your e power j k omega naught n. Yeah. Okay. Any questions till now?
Oh, madam.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's move on to the next question. So the next question here says that find the DTFT of the train of impulse with period n naught. So this is a discrete time impulse. So what you have is something like this. So you have 0, 1, 2, and so on till n naught minus 1. Then you have n naught plus 1, and so on. Then you have 2 n naught minus 1, and so on. So you have a train of impulse where an impulse is located at 0, then everything is 0 till n naught minus 1, and then you have an impulse at n naught, then again everything is 0. Similarly, you will have an impulse at minus n naught, and then everything will be 0 in middle. So this point is basically minus n naught plus 1 and so on. So this is a periodic signal with period n naught. So your fundamental angular frequency will be omega naught, which is 2 pi by n naught. And we want to find, let's say this is your x of n, and we want to find the Fourier transform of this, that is x of omega. And we know that this will be basically summation k running from minus infinity to infinity ck. You have a 2 pi here, ck delta omega minus k times omega naught. We saw this in question number 3. Okay, and ck, what is ck? Ck is nothing but the DTFS or discrete Fourier series coefficient of x of n. And how do we find ck? So your ck is nothing but 1 over n naught summation of n in any period of n naught x of n into e power minus j k omega naught n. Now let us take this interval, that is from minus 1 to n naught minus 1. So this is one period. In that, your x of n is basically delta n. So consider the period from minus 1 to n naught minus 1. In this, x of n is your unit impulse, that is delta n. So therefore ck is 1 by n naught summation n running from minus 1 to n naught minus 1 delta n e power minus j k omega naught n. Now this particular thing will be equal to delta n into e power minus j k omega naught into 0, which is equal to delta n. This is equal to 1 by n naught into summation n running from minus 1 to n naught minus 1 delta n. Now if you observe in this particular thing region, that is from minus 1 to n naught minus 1, you have only one unit impulse, and that accounts for value 1. So this particular summation, whatever we have, has a value as 1. So you have 1 by n naught as your ck. Okay. So therefore, plugging in the value of your ck here, so therefore you get capital X of omega as 2 pi by n naught summation k running from minus infinity to infinity delta omega minus k times omega naught. So 2 pi by n naught is what? 2 pi by n naught is omega naught. So that becomes capital omega naught summation k running from minus infinity to infinity delta omega minus k times omega naught. Now again, this is like, so you are again getting periodic impulses. So you started with a train of impulse, and now again you have obtained a train of impulse in your frequency domain. Okay, so this is similar to what we had seen earlier when we saw in continuous time train of impulse. So train of impulse in time domain results in a train of impulse in frequency domain. Okay. So any questions till now? Okay. If not, then let me move on to the next question. Okay. So what do we have now? So if x of n, so what is given to us is if x of n is 0.5 to the power n u of n, find the Fourier transform of these four signals. So first one is your actual signal x of n. Then they're asking us to find the Fourier transform of n into x of n. Then we need to find the Fourier transform of x2 of n. x2 of n is something that we had defined earlier. Like, yeah, that we have defined earlier. Um then we saw, yeah, x2 of n. Then the third one is x2 of n into j of omega naught n. So let's start one by one. We just add pages. Yeah. So what is given to us is x of n as 0.5 to the power n into u of n. So capital X of omega will be equal to summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x of n into e power minus j omega n. Now what you have, your x of n is valid only or non-zero only for from 0 to infinity because of the unit step function that you have. So this capital X of omega becomes summation n running from 0 to infinity. In this range, your x of n is 0.5 to the power n into e power minus j omega n. I can write this as summation n running from 0 to infinity. We just do it on the next page. So this is equal to capital X of omega. It is equal to summation n running from 0 to infinity 0.5 into e power minus j omega whole to the power n. Now this is an infinite geometric progression. With first term as 1 and common ratio as 0.5 into e power minus j omega. So therefore, capital X of omega becomes 1 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega. Oh, sorry. Your common ratio is 0.5 into e power minus j omega. And this is valid. Why? This is valid because your magnitude of 0.5 into e power minus j omega is basically 0.5, which is less than 1. So therefore, this infinite geometric progression converges, and as a result of which you get this particular Fourier transform. Okay, so we are done with the Fourier transform of x of n. The next thing that we need to do is we need to figure out the Fourier transform of this signal. Let's say x1 of n, which is n into x of n. Now, instead of looking at n into x of n and plugging it in the definition of your Fourier transform, what we'll do, we'll make use of the differentiation in frequency domain property. So, differentiation in frequency domain property it says that n into x of n, which is my x1 of n, will have a Fourier transform as j into dd omega of x of omega, which is my x1 of omega. So therefore, x1 of omega becomes j times dd omega of capital X of omega, which is equal to j times dd omega of your x of omega was what? 1 upon 1 minus 0.5 into e power minus j omega. So differentiation or derivative of this is basically minus 1 upon 1 minus 0.5 into e power minus j omega whole squared multiplied by minus 0.5 into e power minus j omega into minus j. So this minus j into minus j will, yeah, so this minus j you have into minus j will give me a minus 1, and this minus 1 into minus 0.5 will give me 0.5. So that will give me 0.5 into e power minus j omega divided by 1 minus 0.5 into e power minus j omega whole squared. So this is what we just found out. Okay, so we found out for the second signal. Now let us do it for the third one, that is x2 of n. So x2 of n is something that we defined very initially when we were looking at the properties of your Fourier transform. So let's just go back there. Yeah, okay. So this xm of n, is basically equal to x of n by m if n by m is an integer. Otherwise, it is 0. And we saw that the Fourier transform of this particular signal, that is xm of n, is x of 2 omega. So in this case, we have this property. Yeah, we are looking here. So we saw that using, so let's just write it down, using xm of n has a Fourier transform as capital X m of omega. Here m is equal to 2. So therefore x2 of n, yeah, I don't want to use this notation for denoting things here. We just write it as x tilde. Yeah, it's just confusing. I don't want to do it. Yeah. Okay. Huh. Yeah, so x2 of n, this becomes, yeah, so this will have a Fourier transform as x of 2 omega, or in other words, that will be equal to 1 over 1 minus, your x of omega was what? 0.5 into e power minus j omega. So just replace your omega by 2 omega. So that will be 0.5 into e power minus 2j omega. And finally, we have the last question. So we have x hat of n as, and let's say this, yeah, this is some x bar of omega. Yeah. X hat of n. So this particular signal is given to us as x2 of n into e power j omega naught n. So we'll now use frequency shift property. So based on that, your x hat of n, which is x2 of n into e power j omega naught n, this thing will have a Fourier transform as x2 of n had a Fourier transform of x bar of n. So x bar of omega minus omega naught. This is basically your x hat of omega. So therefore, x hat of omega will be equal to, your x2 of omega had 1 upon 1 minus 0.5 e power minus j 2 omega. So this will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus 0.5 into e power minus j 2 times, replace omega by omega minus omega naught. Okay, so this is the Fourier transform of your fourth question. Any queries till now? Okay. Okay. So here it says that consider the following input-output relation of the LTI system. Find the impulse response and step response. So this is what we have. So the difference equation given to us is y of n minus 3 by 2 y of n minus 1 plus 1 by 2 y of n minus 2 is equal to x of n minus x of n minus 1. So let's take Fourier transform of this thing. So that will give me, I'm taking Fourier transform, y of omega minus 3 by 2. Y of n minus 1 will have a Fourier transform as e power minus j omega y of omega plus 1 by 2 into e power minus j2 omega y of omega, which is equal to x of omega minus, let's Fourier transform of x of n minus 1 will be e power minus j omega capital X of omega. So that will give me y of omega 1 minus 3 by 2 into e power minus j omega plus 1 by 2 into e power minus j2 omega, which is equal to x of omega minus, or inside the bracket, 1 minus e power minus j omega. Okay, so this is what we have. So your h of omega will be equal to y of omega by x of omega. So this thing will be equal to 1 minus e power minus j omega upon 1 minus 3 by 2 into e power minus j omega plus 1 by 2 into e power minus j2 omega. And this I can factorize the denominator to get 1 minus e power minus j omega upon 1 minus e power minus j omega into 1 minus half into e power minus j omega. So this gets cancelled. So what is left with is h of omega equal to 1 upon 1 minus half e power minus j omega. Okay, and now what we want to do, we want to find h of n, which is inverse Fourier transform of capital H of omega. And recall, we have seen this Fourier transform in your previous question. So x of n equal to 0.5 to the power n into u of n had a Fourier transform of 1 upon half into e power minus j omega. And that is exactly the Fourier transform that we have in this particular question. So this is nothing but 0.5 or half the power n into u of n. This is one thing that we know. Okay, so we are done with, so this is your impulse response. But along with impulse response, we also need to find the step response. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that my input x of n is u of n, which means x of omega is basically Fourier transform of your u of n, which we saw in the lectures, that is pi delta omega plus 1 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega. Okay, so this we have already seen, and now what we have to do, we need to multiply. So we need to look at y of omega. So y of omega is h of omega into x of omega. So your h of omega is what? H of omega is 1 upon 1 minus half e power minus j omega. So 1 upon 1 minus half into e power minus j omega multiplied by x of omega is this. So pi delta omega plus 1 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega. So that will give me pi delta omega upon 1 minus half e power minus j omega. In the bracket I have 1 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega 1 minus half into e power minus j omega. So this is what I have now. So let's just focus on, so sorry, you have a plus sign here. Yeah. So let us just focus on this particular term right now. So this will be equal to pi delta omega upon 1 minus 1 by 2 into e power j minus j omega, j0. j0 is 1, so that becomes pi delta omega upon 1 minus half, that is half. So you get 2 pi delta omega, something like this. So what I have now, so I have y of omega equal to second. Yeah. Okay, so we have y of omega as 2 pi delta omega plus 1 upon 1 minus half into e power minus j omega into 1 minus e power minus j omega. So now what I can do is I can write this 1 in the numerator equal to 2 minus, or rather half, or okay, so first I will just a minute. Give me a moment. I think I messed up something in my notes. I'll multiply and divide by half first. So I'll get a 2 times thing here. And then I have a half in the numerator. So this half I can write as 1 minus half into e power minus j omega minus half into 1 minus e power minus j omega. Something like this. So 1 minus 1 half, and this gets cancelled. Yeah, okay. So we have this, so I can write it in this way. So your y of omega now becomes 2 pi delta omega plus 2 times your numerator. I can write it as 1 minus half into e power minus j omega minus half into 1 minus e power minus j omega whole divided by 1 minus half into e power minus j omega multiplied by 1 minus e power minus j omega. So this is equal to 2 pi delta omega plus 2 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega minus half into 2 will give me simply minus upon minus 1 upon 1 minus half into e power minus j omega. Okay, so now I can combine the club first two terms, so that will give me 2 times pi delta omega plus 1 upon 1 minus e power minus j omega minus I have 1 upon 1 minus half into e power minus j omega. So we just now saw that this particular thing is Fourier transform of your unit step function. And this particular thing, we know that it's Fourier transform of half to the power n into u of n. So what we are left, so when we take inverse Fourier transform, that will give me y of n, which will be equal to 2 times u of n minus 0.5 to the power n into u of n. Or in other words, I can write it as 2 minus 0.5 to the power n whole multiplied by u of n. And this is what? This is your step response. Is it clear? Any questions? Okay, if not, then let's move on to the 7th question. So the 7th question here says that consider the series RC circuit such that the output is taken across the resistor. So you have a series RC circuit, you have a capacitor, and then you have, a resistor, and this is your output, that is your, so this is your output, and you have input here x of t. And what we want to do is we want to find out impulse response of the system and also find the equivalent discrete time system if the system is filtered uniformly, not filtered, sampled uniformly at a duration of ts. Okay, so we want, okay, so instead of relying on time domain, we'll go to Laplace domain. That simplifies, and this is a standard thing that we do in networks. So Laplace domain representation of the voltage across a capacitor is given by 1 by Cs, and R remains R in Laplace domain. So your Y of S, the ratio of the voltage across your resistor to the ratio to the input voltage, will be basically equal to, using Kirchhoff's law, it will be equal to R upon R plus 1 by Cs. This you will do every time when you do control systems. So this is equal to RCS upon RCS plus 1. So this is equal to, I can, yeah. Okay, yeah, so I can write this as RC is equal to 4, so 4S upon 4S plus 1, or in other words, S upon S plus 1 by 4. Or leave it right now. So this we can simplify a bit. We can do plus 1 and minus 1. So that will give me 1 minus 1 by 4S plus 1. I can write this as 1 minus 1 by 4 upon S plus 1 by 4. And we know that 1 upon S plus A has a Fourier transform. This is a causal system, has a inverse Laplace as e power minus at ut. So therefore, h of t will be equal to 1 has an impulse, one has an inverse Laplace transform as delta t minus 1 by 4, and 1 upon S plus A has a Laplace transform as e power minus a t u of t. So this is what you have. Now what you want to do, you want to, this is the impulse response. This is the part 1 of the question. Next, what you want to do, you want to sample it. So now you would want to sample this with sampling duration as Ts. So therefore you will get h of n as h n Ts, which is equal to delta n Ts minus 1 by 4 into e power minus n Ts by 4 into u of n Ts. Now when you sample a unit step function, you will get another unit step function, but now in frequency domain, now in discrete domain. So this is equal to minus 1 by 4 e power minus n Ts by 4. This will remain as it is, and this is equivalent to your u of n. Why? You have 1 1 1 1 in your time domain representation, and now you are sampling it at every Ts time instant. So therefore your u of n inherently says that you are sampling it at Ts. So at every integer multiple of Ts, you are anyway going to get a step, a unit or one value. And similarly, your delta n Ts will be equal to 1 only when your n equal to 0. So again, this is delta n. So this is your impulse response in your discrete time domain. Okay. Any questions?
No, madam.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with the next question then. So the next question says that consider the discrete time system with a discrete time Fourier transform as h of omega equal to 1 when magnitude of omega is less than or equal to some omega c, which is less than pi, and it is 0 otherwise. So it looks something like this. Again, this is a DTFT, so it repeats. So you have a 0, then you will have 2 pi, 2 pi. You have a pi, minus pi, 2 pi, and so on. So you have something like this. And so on, it continues. So this is 1, this is omega c, this is minus omega c. You will have it at 2 pi plus omega c, 2 pi minus omega c, 2 pi minus 2 pi plus omega c. This is minus 2 pi minus omega c. So this is how your DTFT looks like. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to find the impulse response first. To do that, we'll make use of the definition. So your h of n is 1 over 2 pi integral over a period of 2 pi capital H of omega into e power j omega n d omega. So we'll stick to the minus pi to pi range. And in that, your thing is non-zero only from minus omega c to omega c, as a result of which this now becomes 1 over 2 pi integral from minus omega c to omega c. Capital H of omega is 1 in that range into e power j omega n d omega. So this becomes 1 over 2 pi into e power j omega n upon jn from minus omega c to omega c. So this becomes e power j omega c n minus e power minus j omega c n divided by 2 pi jn. I can write this as 2j into 1 over pi n. So as a result of which, this particular term that we have here is nothing but sine of omega c n. So what we have, h of n is equal to sine of omega c n upon pi n. And this is when your n is not equal to 0. You have an n sitting in the denominator. So obviously your system is not going to, or this is not going to converge when n is equal to, or this is not the formula that you have when n is equal to 0. At n equal to 0, this will shoot to infinity. So now what we'll do, for n equal to 1, we'll simplify. So n equal to 0. So that will give me h of 0 as 1 over 2 pi integral from minus omega c to omega c uh, in this range. Capital H of omega is 1 into e power j omega 0 d omega. So this is equal to 1 over 2 pi integral minus omega c to omega c. This becomes 2 times omega c by 2 pi, which is equal to omega c by pi. Okay, so what you have, so your h of n is equal to omega c by pi when n equal to 0 and sine omega c n by pi n when n is not equal to 0. Okay, so this is what we have. Okay. So this is what we have. Now what is given to us, or what is asked? So this was the first part of the question. The next part of the question says that find an FIR. FIR is finite impulse response approximation of this such that h1 of omega is non-zero in a range only in n from minus n to n, and let's say n is odd. Okay, so what we want to do is, sorry, this is wrong. This is completely wrong. No. I want to say that here you have h1 of n. So your h1 of n should be non-zero only when you have only in the range of minus n to n. So what you want to do is you want to get a finite impulse response approximation for h of n when approximation, let's say h1 of n, such that h1 of n mimics h of n and h of n is not equal to 0 for all n in the range of minus n to n, and let's say n is odd or something like that. That's okay. Okay, so therefore what we want to do is you want to minimize uh, this thing, summation n, the error between h1 of n minus h of n whole square. And this particular error, this is a least square problem. This has a known solution. So this is minimum. We have seen that in class also. So this error is minimum when h1 of n is equal to h of n when n lies in the range of minus n to n, and h1 of n, it is equal to 0 otherwise. This is minimum error thing. So therefore what you have h1 of n is equal to omega c by pi when n is equal to 0. It is equal to sine of omega c n by pi n when n belongs to minus n to n. It is 0 otherwise. This is how you construct a finite impulse response filter from an infinite impulse response filter. This is the standard trick of doing that. This you will look into more, or rather look into details or more details of this particular type of filter constructions when you go in the or when you take up the course of discrete signal processing, or DSP, or digital signal processing. So how do you come up with this particular solution? Let me just quickly make you familiar to that. So you have n equal to minus infinity to infinity, this error as h of n minus h1 of n whole squared. This you can split it in two parts, from n running from minus n to n, h of n minus h1 of n whole square plus summation n when it is not in the range of minus n to n. In that range, your h1 of n is 0, so you get h of n whole square. This particular term is not in our control. And it is independent of your h1 of n. And independent of h1 of n. So this is the only term dependent on h1 of n. And minimizing, or this is minimized, or this is minimum, the minimum value that it can take and this happens when h of n is equal to h1 of n for all n in the range of minus n to n. This is one of the solutions that you have. Okay, so this is what you get. Because of that, you have this particular solution. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
No, madam.
So, okay. If not, then let's move on to the next question. So the next question here says that convert the low pass filter that we saw just now in question number 8 to a high pass filter by a frequency shifting operation. So let's again start with the ideal filter first. Oh, sorry, infinite impulse response filter. And we know the solution of your finite impulse response once you look at infinite impulse response. Okay. So this is how it looked. You have omega c minus omega c. Then at 2 pi, you will get something like this. Same at 2 pi, you will get another box, another response, and it will just continue. And you want to convert this thing. This is your LPF, low pass filter, and you want to convert it to a high pass filter. So how will it look? This is 0. This is 2 pi. This is pi. This is pi. This is 2 pi. Now you want omega c to pi to be passed. Something like this. Similarly, this will also get passed. And then this is omega c. Okay. So now what is happening? This is omega c. This is, yeah, something like this. Then you will again have something like this. This will be at, the center will be at 3 pi. Something like this. In 3 pi you will have another thing like this. Okay. So now what is happening is whatever was located at 0 is now located at pi. So you are, it's something like, so this is your high pass filter. So this change in your frequency response, it resembles a shift in frequency domain by pi units. So if you shift this signal by pi, whatever was located at pi will now be located at 0. So that whatever was located at 0 will now be located at pi. So if this is your, sorry, h L of omega, and this is your h of omega, then your h of omega is nothing but your HL of omega minus pi. Minus pi plus pi doesn't matter. Anywhere, left, right, you shift, it's okay. Okay. So then, if h high pass of your omega is equal to pi unit shift, then your h little h of omega, or high pass filters, not omega, n, will be basically equal to e power j pi n into h of n, where h of n is your IIR filter in question 8. Okay, so this is what we have. So this becomes what now? So this is equal to minus 1 to the power n into h of n. So this is your IIR high pass filter. Now you want to get h1 high pass of n, which is FIR approximation of HH of n. So using the same logic that we have seen here, your H1F, or it will, your H1F of n will be equal to your HH of n when n is in the range of minus n to n. So you will get H1 of Hn is equal to HH of n when n belongs to the range of minus n to n, and it is 0 otherwise. So HH of n is basically minus 1 to the power n into h of n when n is in the range of minus n to n, and 0 otherwise. So this I can also write it as minus 1 to the power n multiplied by this entire thing, multiplied by, so h of n in range of minus n to n and 0 otherwise is nothing but your h1 of n, which we defined in question 8. Is this clear? This transition is clear? You can write this as 0 as, wait, yeah. You can write this 0 as 0 into minus 1 to the power n, and then you can take minus 1 to the power n common. So it will be like minus 1 to the power n into a function which is equal to h of n in n ranging from minus n to n, and it is 0 otherwise. And that is exactly your h1 of n that we saw in the previous question. Okay, so this is your high pass filter, FIR approximation of your high pass filter. These things are covered in a greater detail in your DSP course, not in this, but yeah, it's good to understand how, or rather where your DFT and inverse DFT and all those things come into picture and are useful. Okay, if there are no further questions, then let me move on to the next question. So this is the last question I want to cover today. It says that prove the conjugation property of the Fourier transform. So what do you want to exactly do is, let's say you have proved the conjugation property of what? Of DTFT. Yeah, so you have this discrete time signal x of n, and let's say it has a Fourier transform as x of omega. Then if you take complex conjugate of this signal, then what is the Fourier transform of this? This we want to see. So when we were looking at the um, recap of the course content for this week, we saw that this was equal to x conjugate of minus omega. We'll try to show this now, how it is done. So this is a simple example of how we can make use of the basic definition to come up with the proofs of the properties. At least once in your life, you should see the proofs of these things. Those are very good proofs, and it's good to understand how things get proved. Okay, so let's start with this. So let's say your x tilde of omega is Fourier transform of your signal x conjugate of n. So this is summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x conjugate of n into e power minus j omega n. Now what I'll do, I'll take complex conjugate on both sides. Taking conjugate on both sides. So that will give me x tilde conjugate of omega, which is equal to summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x of n into e power j omega n. Now I can write this as, so I have x tilde conjugate of omega as summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x of n. I can write this as e power minus j minus omega n. So this summation, whatever we have here, this is for DTFT of x of n evaluated at minus omega. So therefore, x tilde of omega is equal to summation n running from minus infinity to infinity x, sorry, this is x of what is Fourier transform of x of n? Fourier transform of x of n is capital X of omega. So this is x of minus omega. Now again, I'll take complex conjugate. So that will give me x tilde of omega. This is complex here. Yeah. X conjugate of minus omega. Okay. So what did we just show? So therefore, x conjugate of n will have a Fourier transform as capital X conjugate of minus omega. Is it clear? Any questions?
No, madam. Clear, madam.
Yeah. Okay, so this was the last thing that I wanted to cover today. If you have any questions, then you are feel free to ask in any part of today's tutorial or anything that you want to ask. Before closing the meeting for today, one quick announcement. I think around 12th of April, I'll be taking an extra summary session. In that, either I will do recap of the content, whatever we have covered in this week's tutorial, in all of these 12 weeks of course. And along with that, what I can take up is if you have any questions or doubts that throughout the course, like for example till the 12th week's course, whatever doubts you have, you can just ask me during that session. I will prefer you people to put your doubts or queries in the Q&A portal till 11th of till the noon of your 11th April. I'll tell the formal date in the next week. Yeah, but most likely till 12 p.m. of 11th April, and I will take up only those questions which are posted before that time. Or any questions after that, I won't be able to take because I need to prepare the solutions and prepare for that particular session, summary session. So feel free to post any sort of doubts in that for that particular session. I'll be happy to help you there. Okay, so that's all from my side for today. If you don't have any other questions, then you are free to leave the meeting. Again, thank you for attending today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.